Hit the throttle, feel the cheese. Two wheels lift, grip tight, got the breeze.
Ladies and gentlemen, karibu sana to yet another episode of Cat on Wheels podcast. I'm your host kama kawaida Cat, and today we are kama kawaida at the Black Cross Chenro, your one-stop garage for everything bike related. Feel free to stop by and get your bikes fixed. We are back again with Kyle. Kyle, we had the first episode, but it was incomplete, so we're here to do a complete, which is the part 2. So karibu sana Kyle, man.
Asante.
Last time we had you, ulikuwa umead kilo ka 50, leo umereduce 12.
Even if kunaendanga.
Nini li happen?
Inatonga kwa unpredictable. Sasa zingine unapia ukiwa
Ile,
pia ukiwa.
Don't let them know your next move.
Exactly.
Like 1 minute you're buffed, the other minute you're...
Ndio sasa. Uko slim, uko slender.
Karibu sana, man.
Asante.
So since you are one of the OG riders, I wanted to know a few things. Huh?
Okay.
Probably the listeners also want to know, and they are asking. You used to be in the... Which racing team were you?
Black Cross.
Black Cross.
Yes.
Yeah, so Black Cross, and then there was, you had mentioned Biker Boys.
Biker Boys was more of a group, of a social group. It wasn't really a team per se.
Oh, Biker Boys, they were not doing
They were
racing.
not doing racing or anything. It was just a quote unquote a kind of nyumba kumi.
A kind of nyumba
Yeah,
kumi.
you see how nyumba kumi WhatsApp groups, how just a community of close-knit riders.
And you're telling me, you're telling me that actually it is the oldest surviving biker
Yes.
group in Kenya
Yes,
right now.
Yes. I will call out anyone who will prove me wrong.
Anyone who is willing
To prove
guys,
me
you've heard that. Anyone who wants to prove this statement wrong, come out. Biker Boys is the oldest surviving group of bikers actually, and it has some of the guys who used to ride from back in the days.
Yeah. Doc was once a member of the group. Styles was once a member of the group. Oya is still a member of the group. There are guys like Kihumwai, who is a member of the group.
So there are no newbies. So according to you guys, newbies are the ones who started riding in 2015.
No, chopping board.
I'm just asking because the guys you're mentioning, most of them, they rarely ride these days.
Some still ride, but no longer in the group.
Not that active.
Group setting.
they
More of
just
like their own private riding.
And Biker Boys, do you still do your rides? Like,
No.
do you, as Biker Boys,
Once
like
in
your
a
guys?
while, somebody will pop up in the group and plan for a ride, but we no longer really ride as a group.
Like as a
Life
group.
happened.
Life
We grew
happened.
up. People have responsibilities. So yeah.
See, you guys do one for the all-time sake, am I what?
We were planning to do so this year. I don't know what happened. So maybe next year on our anniversary, might happen. You never know.
When is your anniversary?
Should be September 14th or September 20th. No, August 14th.
Okay, yeah, it's too late for that.
Or 24th, something
maybe,
like that.
Maybe until the next one.
Yeah,
Sasa.
maybe.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So now you used to belong to Black Cross Racing.
Yes, but not as an official racer.
You are not racing.
I was more of like the support team. I was not officially racing.
What do
I
you
was
mean
not-
support team?
Like in football, there's the water boy.
The ball boy. You know,
The ball
guys
boy.
who-
Yeah. I was
water
more of a ball boy.
So before we start talking about racing, let me ask you about Biker Boys. How was your day-to-day planning of going, like when you want to go for a ride? How was it like for you guys? You know, these days it's just,
So-
you used to have randoms and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, most of our rides were random. So what eventually happened along the way, you will find guys who are always prepared to have a ride anytime, anywhere. So all there needed to be was somebody to plan for it. So the moment somebody plans for it, guys always had their insurance in order, their driving license in order, their bikes were always in order. So it was just a matter of showing up and riding.
Or you had to make sure?
Well, the FOMO was something with that group because our rides were always eventful.
Like you
So
guys used
you
to
really
talk less
never
there.
wanted to miss a ride. So you basically had to have your paperwork and everything in order.
Everything in check.
Your
Okay.
ride ikipop up, wewe kazi yako tu ni kushow up.
Did you guys used to make it compulsory, like for you? You know, these days people can show up for rides and no one can bother to check on the other. You know, like do you have the right gear or anything?
Initially it was compulsory, but with time people caught up. Ikakuwa tu ni ile tu unajua. If you're going on a Biker Boys ride, you have to have your shit in order.
If not,
If not, you're going back home.
So you stopped singing out loud, so guys were just,
Guys will
it
just
was
know.
like a default
It,
kind of a
it
thing.
was like a default setting.
Ah, okay. So compared to those days and now, what difference do you see?
The,
Or maybe similarities? Has so much changed?
not so much yet. Change has been there. How do I put it? The more there is change, the more things change, the more things stay the same. Is that, I don't know.
The more things change, the more things stay the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
there have been changes in how guys plan for rides, but there has also been things that have remained constant throughout. For example, there's always those guys who will always be hard-headed. It's my bike, it's my money, it's my body.
Oh,
You know, so that has always been there.
oh, okay. It's been there during
It
your
was
time
there,
and it's
it's
still here.
still there, I still see it, still happening.
okay.
The biggest difference I see then, mentorship was really something
Back then.
back then.
These days, there's
These days,
less of that.
there's less of mentorship happening nowadays.
Why do you think so? You don't see much training or...
No, as in, you see, like how you start off when somebody is starting to ride as a newbie. Back then, by default, naturally, there will be things that the riders will take you through, like a crash course of sorts. You get? So, for example, they'll tell you about a wobble even before you experience it.
Okay.
They'll tell you about what to do when that happens, when it's likely to happen. So let me put it this way: the theory part of riding was presented to you before you got to ride your bike. You
so,
get?
so you can understand better.
So there was better understanding. Ukifanya mistake kwa barabara, kuna mtu anakukosoa, kuna mtu anakuguide,
And you take it positively.
and you take it positively.
Okay,
For
okay.
example, I've learned so much from Oyaya with my current bike, the XJR. Anytime I'm on any bike, I've learned so much from him. So your mentorship ilikuwa ina go a long way.
And it helped, like you could tell.
Yes. The mistakes that I did in retrospect, if I didn't have that mentorship going, the results would have been more catastrophic than they were.
So it is really important.
Yes, mentorship
Talking of you know, Black Rose Racing Team used to be owned by I don't know if it's still active or not. So you're saying you used to be a member of the Black Rose Racing, but not as an active racer.
not as an active racer.
So how many bikers do you remember were there?
7 or 8? Let me say around 10. Let me say
10?
around 10.
10 bikers.
10 bikers.
Okay. And what was the day? What was like the activity and the planning? Since you are not an active racer,
Yeah.
How did you used to go about it? And was it like the team that used to rule the races, or
Sorry, I didn't get that.
was it like the team that used to rule when it comes to racing?
Well,
and everything?
Black Rose was a team to
watch out for.
Watch out for.
Really?
Yes.
Which was the second one?
Second one, either Blade Dock Racing, or the team by Levy. What was it called? Levy had a team. I can't remember the name. Of Levy's team, but I think the top 3 teams were that by Levy, Blade Dock Racing, and Black Rose. Oh, and Styles. Styles also.
Styles Racing Team.
Yeah, Styles Racing Team was also a team to contend with.
I see. So give me the planning. Like for example, it's race day. So what normally happened before the race until to the day of the race?
So so we'll have 2 days. No, the guys will have 2 days. There will be Saturday and Sunday. Sunday will normally be the official racing day, and then there will be the track day on Saturday. And the track day scrutiny. What else? Basically, the preparation, the paperwork preparation on Saturday. So guys will meet, lay out the track, start to finish. You do a sighting lap. You familiarize yourself with the track. You have your bike scrutinized by the mechs who are working for the organizers just to make sure everything is okay. What else will happen on the Saturday? Basically prepare, have your gear in order, have your bikes in order and all that. And then now Sunday will be the D-Day. That's when now spectators will show up. That's the event day.
And how are you guys getting your gears?
Some teams will have sponsorships.
Oh, there used to be sponsorship.
Yes, some teams will
From
have
who?
sponsorships from individuals, companies. So for example, like with Black Rose, Black Rose, Oya used to get us, are they called condiments? Condiments in terms of snacks and food during both track day and rest day. In terms of fuel, Oya used to fuel the racers' bikes. He will meet the racers halfway, and then the racers now will meet him halfway, and yeah, the team performed, and it was what it was.
These days there are not so many races happening other than Slick. When you talk of these races, are the ones that are happening at Whistling Morans or the drags? And
No. Road racing. Back then it was only road racing.
Road racing?
Road racing. So
Control traffic or?
No, close the road completely.
And then do a circuit?
And then do a circuit.
Where
so
exactly?
The first race that ever happened at Tattoo City, Ruiru. So we had closed from Tattoo City to Committee Corner. That whole road. So guys will race up, turn, then come down.
Like there's a roundabout at the far end, you
at
turn there and then come back.
Committee Corner. It's not really a roundabout, it's a cone. So you'll do the lap, then once everybody is done going up, you then realign and come down.
That's more like a drag race, only that it has return and, no?
They are twisties. Yeah, there's a stretch, there used to be a stretch between where Tattoo City, Kigwa, I think it's Kigwa that is there now. So there used to be like a nice stretch, turns. We made do with what we had.
Yeah, that sounded like, it sounded a little bit of a struggle, you know, but you're just enjoying it.
Yeah, by the way, let me tell you, it was fun. Racing then used to be something you look forward to.
I can imagine if only there was a track. We do have that time there was no Whistling Moran, even though it's not.
Yeah, that time there was no Whistling Moran. Actually, the activities then is what led to some of these tracks coming up because investors saw an opportunity.
And they invested in Whistling Moran.
Yes.
It's more of a go-kart.
I think it was actually a go-kart, only that they made it a bit wider to accommodate
Bikers
riders.
as well. Why do you think we don't have a proper track?
Funding. Building a track is not a cheap.
Talking of building a track, what do you think the budget would look like in terms of everything, including like the size of the track?
We once did what's it called? Feasibility study, and it was for a proper world track, international standard track. Costs were up of 1B, and that's then.
1 billion?
Yes.
When was that?
That's 20, we are talking 20. We did the feasibility study 2015, either 2015 or 2016. I think 2014, 2015, 2016, around that.
1B?
1B. So track, because number one, the asphalt you use on track is not the asphalt.
It's a special one, yeah?
Yeah,
it's kind of different.
Yeah. And then in terms of camera, because you need footage, in terms of basically the
documenting.
Yeah, stands for spectators, spectator facilities, the whole lot. Yeah.
1 billion. Okay, I didn't see 1 billion in the picture. Really?
It came to I think around 1.2 and some change.
Like, what exactly were you looking at in terms? What are the things apart from the size of the track and everything? And then, were you going for the high-end stuff, or there was an alternative?
Let's call it average high-end, not like Sepang high-end, but average high-end, as in a track that
South
can,
Africa.
something that can at least host an international event, even though it won't be at like premium standards, but it's good enough to hold an international event.
Do you think we'll have a track someday?
Yes.
How?
The community is really growing, one. Two, this will probably get me in trouble, but racing has slowly diffused in the sense that there are more guys willing to participate. Back then, it used to be more of a consortium. Is that the right word to use?
Like a thing that's not for everyone.
Yes.
Like the specific people
Like
who
the
could do it,
specific
those who
people
could
who-
afford to do it.
Yes, because it's also not a cheap endeavor.
Yeah, true. It is still not cheap. And I still do believe or feel like it's not for everyone.
It's not, to be honest.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, to be honest. If you choose to thrash a bike like this, for instance, the maintenance when you're doing races and you take it to the track is very expensive.
very expensive.
There's some insurance involved for your bike, your medical, the parts, you're killing the engine and everything. So it's a whole long story. So you think like the bikers are the ones who can fund?
I think if bikers
Talking-
were,
because
if,
if you
if
talk
bikers
of
were
one
willing,
day-
it's possible.
Well, bikers
I have
will.
seen the capacity that we have as a community, and trust you me, if bikers were willing, it was possible. But unfortunately, as a Kenyan culture, not really a bikers culture, I'll call it a Kenyan culture because you'll see the same happening even in other fields like politics, basically in other fields, where when finances are involved,
Where money is involved, people start
It
drawing the
becomes-
lines and
yeah.
dividing and creating an. But if it's riding, fine.
if it's riding, fine. But the moment you start telling people there are funds to be fundraised,
So it will take an individual or at least 2 or 3 people who can put
because
their heads
even
together.
then, the road racing, as much as yes, racers sometimes will chip in, it will be sponsored by individuals. It used
The
to
guys
be
who own
sponsored
the
by
race teams
individuals.
and stuff like that, yeah?
Yes.
Ah, okay. But you mentioned sponsors, like there are sometimes companies who come.
That came later on.
Okay.
That came later on. I think for the first 2 races, there was no sponsors. That came later on after they saw the capacity that the whole thing was building. Because with the first race at Tattoo City, we had over 2,000 spectators. It was a sold-out event.
2,000?
Yeah.
And how are you doing the marketing then?
By word of mouth and WhatsApp groups. I don't think marketing was done for more than 2 weeks, if I can remember correctly.
Like it started like close to the event.
Yeah.
That's when you'd make noise and then.
That's when guys made noise about it. So we had riders who came in from as far as TZ
Just to see.
just to spectate.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, you said life happened. I was about to ask you, why did you guys stop? But yeah.
Life happened.
That must have been fun
Oh,
back in the
trust me,
days.
it
Like
was fun.
having 2,000 spectators by just by
was
word
fun.
of mouth. And technology was not that advanced, you know.
All we had was Facebook and WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Twitter was not even really that much, and Instagram.
Yeah, it sounded a bit
Bougie.
kind of a thing. Yeah, like because even the interface looked boring.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, Elon Musk. But, yeah, but it's the truth. So it will take. So basically, you're saying it could take an individual to come up with a track, and that individual must be having a lot of money, and is someone who has seen like, hey, this can be a good investment.
Let me put it this way: it will take proper organization. Yeah, like where there is accountability, where people sit down. This is how much you need, and then let it not be from like individual pockets, because then when guys chuck their own money, they and
Some entitlement.
this is no offense to anyone, but it obviously comes with a sense of entitlement. There's a way, if I chuck my cash, I will want things to get done.
And
get-
you want to get involved to know the progress.
Precisely. And when it comes now to such events, you really need to leave it to the professionals to do it, you know.
I'm really curious to know who are these people who are
Let me
sponsoring.
not mention this.
But the big companies. No,
Oh,
I'm talking
the
about
companies.
no, not individuals, the companies.
I think Vivo came in. Vivo had come in. I think Equity at some point also came in. Safaricom, I don't think Safaricom ever came in. There was Vivo, and then there was now private companies like Code Red by Styles, Black Rose by Weaya, who sponsored with their company names. Who else? There were some insurance companies came in, some real estate companies also came in. So there were a few funders.
So this one, they were funding an individual in a bike racing group or the entire team.
Yeah. Initially they were funding teams.
And then, so right now we have racers who are doing solo. Like they're not.
Right
What,
now,
what was
to
the
be honest, I'm
advantage?
not sure how
So what was the
to say
advantage
that.
back in the days of belonging to a racing team? You couldn't do it individual. Like I couldn't just come as cat on wheels and I race.
The advantage one, there's always safety in numbers. So let's say if you like belong to a certain team, there's that. If your bike breaks down, you know you have a team that will sort you out and take care of you. Outerback ukiwa stranded. And then training, in terms of training, you'll get guys who will be invested in how good you are as a rider. Advice. It was superb. Let me say it was fun and superb.
Wow, very much curious. So the races back then and right now, there's a big difference, you see.
I can't really speak about right now, given that I pulled back from the whole.
But you're still
show.
active in biking stuff.
Yeah, but I can't speak much about the races.
You don't go to watch the races.
You just want to have me on the chopping board, huh?
Guys, Kyle does not come for the races. Can you imagine? Hakuja, anasikianga.
Si hivyo, siko ubaya. What happened was,
Yeah, it's understandable. Yeah.
kuna politics zili happen. There are politics, if you ask the old guys, they'll tell you about it. Let me not speak about
Like
it.
from the origin of races and
Yeah, if you listen, you had Mother on your podcast, I'm sure you listened
what
to
he
it.
said.
Yes, guys who have not watched it can
Can
go
go
back to
watch
that and
So that's
get
the
the
reason.
facts.
So what mother said is
It's
Yeah.
not the reason, but it is one of.
a part of the reason.
So there-
one of the reasons.
So there was too much politics that came in that left guys with a bad taste in their mouth. So ukisikia story ya racing, you're like, let them do it.
Mbaya.
Si ati ni mbaya, ni poa, but let them do it.
So when you guys started, there was no politics.
There's always been politics,
But how are you managing?
but it was manageable then.
But what was the difference to a point right now you feel like?
When fans started getting involved, the moment money became a factor, it went from 0 to 100 in.
What was the commotion all about? Like someone was not getting a fair cut in the group? Ama?
Let me
Me, I'd like to understand. You're not going to mention names or anything. Is that the reason why there's no teams
for
anymore?
example, there was concerns that there were teams that were getting funding and the funding one was not getting to the racers. There was complaints.
So the owner of the team was pocketing the entire money?
Yes. There was also things like the funds or the resources that came from selling tickets, how those funds go being utilized. So basically there was some normal kind of politics, but the problem with bikers are usually very opinionated people. Anytime you see somebody who's riding,
Everyone wants to be heard.
everybody wants to be heard.
But now when you talk about ticket sales, I'm also curious. In your own opinion, where do you think ticket sales go?
I have no idea.
But I'd be curious. Where do ticket sales go?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'll try to think about that.
But
by the
remember,
way.
closing down those roads cost money.
From the county government.
Yes. Getting cops on the ground, you have to pay them. Feeding people, for example, I was a marshal on the first race. Food was on the organizers. So things like food, you have to factor in the cost of food.
Now. How much was the ticket?
I think a ticket was going for 1,000 shillings or 1,500. Can't remember well.
So 1,500 times 2,000. Hey, that's a lot of money. All the money would pay the watch. Anyway, fine.
Yeah.
I
So
don't think for
guys sat down and did that math.
that.
And
The same way I'm doing it. Like, cops cannot be paid that much if they cannot close with this much.
So you know, so when you start now factoring it in like that,
The third eye opens.
bwana inaleta shida. Unasahau hizo equipment zilikuwa kwa grao lazima zibebwe. Kuzibeba ile cost do.
Na
Hizo
yes.
equipment zimekuwa hired. Lazima zilipiwe. Food, the vendors, you have to pay. You have to pay for the grounds. So easy. I think the organizers, in my opinion, were not very articulate in how the funds were spent, and that created.
Sponsors.
Hiyo create. Wewe wacha zako bwana. Ukianza kuongea story ya sponsor bwana utaleta.
Yeah, but me I'm curious. Yeah, so you think that's how zilianza kudidimia? Zilianza
Zilianza
kushuka
zikishuka,
pole mpaka ikaisha.
Mpaka ikaisha.
Otherwise kama watu wangekuwa organize sasa tungekuwa mbali.
If instead of looking, if from the first race, instead of working downwards, we worked upwards, trust you me, sasa tungekuwa mbali sana. Because it's what, 10 years, over
Down the
12
line.
years, tangu the last race,
I think that's the reason why
tangu the first race.
maybe that's the reason why there's no one like that consistency. The inconsistency imefanya mpaka maybe a potential person who saw the need and would want to invest in the track and everything hajaona hiyo nini sana
the consistency ijakuwa.
Akona, but I think Slick they're doing a
Slick
good job.
they're
they're
doing
really
a marvelous
job
job
so
when it
we are
comes to
hoping
racing.
maybe with them by then. But you cannot get land in Nairobi right now. Where would be your ideal place to build a track?
Kajiado.
Why Kajiado?
Proximity to Nairobi and the availability of huge tracts of land.
Why not
Actually,
Nanyuki?
actually, the feasibility study had been done for Kajiado.
Really?
Yeah,
Why not Nanyuki?
too far.
But
Because what happens with
there's an
races,
airport there.
yeah, as much as there's an airport, what happens with races, you want it not to be far, to be out of town enough to have the space to accommodate everyone, the crowd, and also not to be too far to allow guys to ride to and fro in a day. So if you did your race in Nanyuki, you have riders, let's say, leave on Sunday morning to Nanyuki, go race and come back home, because unfortunately hatujafika level yenye ati
Bikes
watu
zinabebwa.
wataekelea kwa matrela na nini. So most likely guys will ride. So if ukipiga hesabu ya watu wa ride waende wa race na warudi home, unaona hiyo kuna vile utakuwa ukistrain wase.
Hiyo subway work.
Hiyo hesabu work. But with Kajiado, it will work perfectly. Even for spectators. Even for spectators to attend, because you also have to factor in spectators. If you take it to Nyanyuki, who's going to come as a spectator? Only guys who have the time and, you know.
And can get there.
But ukieka karibu, you will have a wider pool of spectators to fish for.
How many acres?
To be honest, you just need 120 acres.
And that includes the amenities?
That includes the amenities.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, some people say 400. Those are not
Okay,
going.
if you're doing like a huge track, but with 120, it's
It
sufficient.
meets the international
It meets the
standards and
international
everything,
standards
and it can
everything.
host international events and everything.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about street riding during your time and right now. So you had mentioned earlier that sometime you'd go for a ride back in the days, and then one would get to an accident and then you'd quit. Is that what used to happen with every other rider, or you as an individual, you'd feel like, let me just
What do you
stop?
mean? Sorry?
Like for instance, you said you lost a friend
Yeah.
kwa Outer Ring Road, right?
Yeah.
So up Outer Ring, you lost a friend, and then you went there. From what you're mentioning, you saw it was him, his body, and you told me about he came with a jacket and everything. Yeah, you get.
Yeah.
And then you put your bike aside for some time.
Oh, whether that used to happen every time?
Yeah, like you said,
Not
it's through
really.
trauma or something.
Not really. What happened with Nyasani's death, it hit too close to home. You get. As much as, yes, the other riders, their souls rest in peace, were my friends,
This one had a special place.
this one had a special place, so it hit too close to home. You know, there, for example, there are riders who will go down, not die, but go down, and you'll be like, yeah, that was expected. You know, it wouldn't hit you by surprise, given how that individual would ride on the highway and everything, and you'll be like, yeah. But with Nyasani's hit too close to home. He was too close to me, and he was too good of a rider, so it just kind of threw me off.
So I know death is inevitable. Do you think the guys, during your days, the guys we've lost, if they were alive right now, do you think there would be an impact?
Yes.
Just put in mind the guys you think.
Yes.
How so?
People like Quest were people who were in the process of bringing proper change in the community.
But then when I got into biking, sorry to cut you short, I heard so much about Quest.
Yeah.
Like, who was this guy really?
He was a gentleman. Let me put it that way. He was a gentleman who had the best of interest for the community.
Quest.
Yes. So much so, I think the farm after his passing had committed almost, was it, I can't remember the figure, but they had committed a parcel of land, like proper parcel, like almost 100 acres. The family.
The family.
Quest, yeah.
100 acres.
Yeah, and they were willing to give that as a through the James Quest Foundation, like for guys to build a proper track and have the activity and have bikers activities there. I don't know how that went, but yeah, that had happened.
So you're saying he's a gentleman. Please elaborate. Like, who was this Quest guy? What bike was he riding? What are some of the things he did for the
I think he
community?
had a ZMR. Was it? I think so.
Like, was it through a bike accident?
I don't know I can't remember.
Cause of death?
I can't remember. His death, his accident happened at night.
Oh, he got into an accident.
He got into an accident at night.
Okay.
So he was recovered from Wayaki Way. I don't know
Which
the
year is
circumstances. This is 2015, either 2014 or 2015. So he was one of those guys who really had ambition for the community. He was amongst the first guys who made P-back to be P-back.
Ah.
He ran various foundations. He was basically a gentleman. He was the first what do you call them? Like the first responder. These first responders, guys who
Rescues and everything.
Yeah, he was amongst the first guys who started that culture to respond to guys when they have accidents. As in, bana, he was a gentleman.
So P-back was like initially, he's the founder of P-back.
He's not the founder, but he's amongst the first guys who joined P-back.
Like when it launched?
Yeah.
Ah, was it called P-back then? Or?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I've had Quest a lot, to be honest. I've had him a lot.
That guy had dreams. I might not remember the specifics, but he had dreams for the community.
So he got into an accident with the ZMR?
I think so. He used to ride as a Demar at the time.
At night? Like
Yeah.
that was a hit and run, must
A
have
hit
been.
and run, yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah, now I get your point. It makes sense. Like people like Quest, who else do you think would?
Quest will have somebody like Muchila. So Muchila had a racing team. Goodness, man. My memory fails me. He had a racing team. Muchila's racing team was called... sikumbuki walai.
But during
he
your
had a
time
racing
still,
team.
eh?
Yes. So, for example, somebody like Muchila was one of the first big boys who really supported me in my business. So when I started off, I didn't know shit about bikes. Basically, I was trying to network. He was one of the guys who backed me up and gave me credibility just because of what I was doing and what I was aiming for. You get? So kunao watu walikuwa wangefanya vitu superb sana if they were still around.
If they were still around, yeah. Ah, okay. So what is your take on, you know, when you talk about safe riding, yeah?
Yeah.
Safe riding in the streets, during your days and right now, do you think people are taking precaution as much? Or during your days, were you guys taking the L's as you moved along the way compared to now?
I think during our time, how will I put it? We were not ashamed of our L's. You get? You go down, you're not ashamed to say you went down. You're willing to learn from that experience. You're willing for guys to criticize you, tell you what you did wrong and what you could have done better. Nowadays, somebody goes down and they're hiding their bike. They don't even want you to know they went down.
They feel like it's a shame.
They feel like it's a shame. But the only way, trust me, the only way you will ride, you will learn how to ride, is if you go down.
Is that like an initiation? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Like at the Whistling Morana here, there's this first corner. Most people wanaangukanga hapo. Like hata ride mara ngapi, hata ride for 5 years. Kama hujai anguka hapo, utaanguka siku moja.
Unajua inakuangaje? Ukiride bike, let's say your skill set is from 0 to 7. Right?
7 being the greatest.
7 being like your highest, you know. So if you're riding within your limits, let's say you're riding from 0 to 500. So in terms of speed, you're keeping within your limits, you're braking distance and all that. Chances of going down are small. But learning will not happen. Because you'll only know the limit of your brakes if at some point you have to hard brake. And you realize, oh, past this point, I skid. Right? You'll only learn about wobbles if you experience a wobble.
High speed.
At high speed. A wobble will never happen at 50, will it?
Never.
Never. It will only happen maybe past 150, 180. So if you're not riding at your limits, some of these things you won't experience, and consequently, you won't learn from them.
So you'll be more like a commuter, or just you have a bike and everything. But someone said necessarily you don't have to experience all those things. Everyone buys their bike for a different purpose.
Yes.
As much as there are guys who look at the sport bike and they're like, this can do 200, I wanna see that.
True, but for some people like me, it doesn't make sense. You're riding a bike like this, capable of doing 250, and you can't handle it at that 250. You'll rather tell me,
Get a 200cc.
have it, experience the 250, you can handle the 250, but you choose to ride at 150. You get? There's a difference between a rider who rides at 150 by choice and a rider who rides at 150 by circumstance, as in by default. You get what I'm trying to say?
Not really.
Not really?
Like you're telling me there's someone who's I bought this bike because it can do 299.
Yeah.
But I'm buying it and I'm not doing 299.
You need to at least experience the 299 at least once or
If
twice.
that is the reason why you bought it.
Yes.
Okay, so what if I just buy it because I admire it and it can do 299, but I'm okay doing 100?
You bought the bike for the wrong reason.
So I should
Get another bike.
So in short, you're saying for me, if I own such a bike, I'll be wasting it if I'm not.
You will not be experiencing that bike. You won't be experiencing that
But
bike.
why would you say experiencing it is exhausting it to its limit?
Not to its limits, to your limits.
Well, like I said, it's 299, but my limit is 100, and I'm okay
For
with
how
that.
long are you going to stay at 100?
As long as it takes, because I like the bike, and I'm doing 100, and I bought it
Then-
because I like it.
Put it this way. I give you an R6, you ride it at 100 for an year. Right? You give me an R6, I ride it at 250 for an year. Then comes the time to upgrade. You're upgrading to an R1, I'm upgrading to an R1. Who will handle the R1 better?
Well, definitely you.
Exactly.
But what if that's not my intention, to do speeds, but I just admire
Get a
big
different
bikes?
bike. Or pack it, put it in the house, look at it.
Well, it kind
Don't
of
get
feel
on-
like it's judgmental.
Why are you getting on the road with that bike?
Because nasema ni kama nimeipenda tu.
Weka kwa nyumba, umeipenda tu, si ndio? Weka kwa nyumba uionange. Si utakuwa unaiona kila siku ukiamka.
Kama hutaki kufika 200.
Hutaki kufika 200.
But you're
Not that I'm advocating
you're not advocating for
No,
speeds and
that's
everything,
not what
yeah?
I'm doing.
Yeah, I
I'm saying
get you.
just experience your bike to its limit. Try and build your skill. Have a bike that you know you can handle despite different conditions. You have a bike, you had gone, let's say, you had gone for a ride to Nyeri. Sawa, mumechelewa kutoka. So to get back to Nairobi before the dark, you need to ride a little bit faster. What happens in that
You'll
instance?
fike before that.
Eh,
You'll have to gun.
you'll have to gun it. So if you gun it and you can't handle it, I mean,
That's when you...
that's when shit happens.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now tell me, in your biking journey, which is the farthest ride you've gone? I don't think it makes sense if I ask you the fastest speed you've gone, because I realize
That
in this,
one.
yeah, in this podcast I get a lot of feedback, and most of them are beginner riders.
Yeah.
You get like they keep asking me, yo bike umekalia inaweza fika ngapi? Mwenye ameendesha amefika ngapi?
Yeah.
So I reached a point and I'm like, asking the speed does not make
It
sense.
makes sense.
But we want to talk about more of the experience. Like, if a biker has a bike and you've been riding, you know, other than just Nairobi, it's more juicy when you explore places with it. You know, sometimes the adventure part of it, yeah? So for you, what are some of the longest rides you've done?
I think the longest ride I did was from Kampala to Mombasa.
You went to Kampala?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't start Nairobi, Kampala, Mombasa? Or...
No. I was picking up a bike from Kampala, delivering it to Mombasa.
Which year is this?
This is 2013, 2014, 2015.
Shit, you guys, you started like...
That's 2015. I think it was actually 2014.
Eh,
Because that was the first bike I had, either the first or second trip I made to Uganda.
you're taking it from Uganda to
Delivering
Mombasa.
it to a client.
Was that in a day or...
No, yeah, bana. That's a 2-day trip.
How was it like? Like, what was the... You get to Uganda, you pick the bike.
So got to Kampala, so did the shopping. So the shopping took around 3 days. So on the day of departure, left Kampala at around 5. No, I was actually late leaving Kampala. I left at around 10.
10 p.m.
Yes,
With the
10
bike?
a.m.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. in the morning.
Okay.
I had, my contact in Kampala, we used to call him Uncle Moses. So Uncle Moses gave me one of his riders to escort me to the Busia border. So that leg was a bit fast, given that we were 2 riders. There's some comfort that comes when you're riding with someone, so you're able to stretch your limits a little bit. So we got from Kampala to the Busia border. We left Kampala at around 10 a.m. By around 2:30, we were at Busia. Did the clearing and everything. Took a bit longer than I expected, so I was leaving Busia at around 4:30 p.m. Got to Kisumu, slept over in Kisumu. The following day, left Kisumu at around some minutes
Uganda,
to 7 a.m. Did the trip one way from Kisumu to Coastal.
That's the whole day now.
That's the whole day. That was a whole day trip. That
That's
was
some seat time. Which bike is this?
that was a GS. Was it a GS or was it the Suzuki? I think it was the Suzuki 750. It was either the Suzuki 750 or the BMW 800. Not the F800 GS, but the sport one. What's the sport one called?
I don't know.
There's a sports cruiser they make of the F800. I think it's the BMW
The one that's a bit
R800R.
inakanga nono kidogo. Oh, I think I've seen it. K.
K.
Yeah,
I think it's the K. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, there's something I wanted to ask. Most bikes used to come from Uganda.
Yes, then.
Why?
They were cheap. There was no much regulation.
With
in
UG
terms
plates?
Of, yeah.
Are they any expensive now?
Right now, okay, what the difference between now and then in terms of UG bikes, then you'll be sure any Ugandan bike was legitimate even in Uganda. Right now, you're not sure whether the bike is actually legitimate in Uganda
Wait,
itself.
I didn't get you. Like, umekimbia ati when you
Siko nataka kushike hapo.
tutarewind mpaka tu. So rudia tu. Jibado
So
tutarewind.
then, bikes from Uganda were actually registered in Uganda.
UG plates.
UG plates.
Uh-huh.
So you will do a URA search
Eh.
and it will give you results of the bike,
Yeah.
right? But as the demand in Kenya grew for the Ugandan registered bikes because they were cheaper, the Ugandans, no offense to Ugandans, started cutting corners. So they realized huku you will bandika a plate, a Kenyan plate on a bike and ride.
For the
So
rest
they
of your life.
started doing the same in Uganda.
Taking Kenyan plates.
No, taking
UG plates.
UG plates and just bandikaing on an unregistered bike in Uganda. Since their ambition is not to sell it in UG,
They want to sell it to Kenya.
they want to bring it to Kenya,
Oh.
so there is no reason to register it in
Chafuaing markets.
Uganda. Exactly. But sasa ukikuja huku, ukitry kuregister, you have to, in the process of registration, you have to deregister from the country of origin. So you have to have paperwork from URA. Ukienda URA kufanya deregistration, nothing.
They don't know that
They
bike.
don't know that bike.
But you couldn't do your due diligence when you're in Uganda before you take it.
Initially, the guys didn't think about doing due diligence, given that it was automatic that the bike was registered in Uganda.
Or the assumption.
The assumption that the bike is already registered in UG. But also with time, with demand, that went south.
Oh, so that's why we have less UG bikes here.
Yes. And even if we have, cops will always be on your neck. Because sasa pia wao walijua Kenya kinaendelea. It's a syndicate.
But if you have a legitimate UG plate, why would you be disturbed by the cops? I thought that there's some small paper you need to have.
Yeah, unajua sasa ubaya ni ati uko Kenya na Kenya ni Kenya. Unasikia wanasema Kenya ni home.
Tusiende hapo. Kuna sababu Kenya ni home. We stand with whoever they're trying to.
Yeah.
Hey, that is interesting. That one you've clarified. I actually didn't know because even nilikuwa naona ma UG plate mingi sana. But do you think kuna watu walikuwa wanabother ku change registration?
And
it was smooth.
Yeah. You will easily register a bike from UG back then.
But you'll have to go to register.
You will have to follow the due process, but it was possible.
Okay,
It is even still possible even now with a properly registered bike from Uganda.
But you have to do your due diligence.
But you have to do your
that
due
one you have to make it
diligence.
clear.
Yeah.
So that it's not that UG bikes are bad.
No.
They're cheaper and everything.
They're cheaper and everything. Those guys, I don't think, pay taxes for their bikes.
Really?
Yeah. So an MTO9 that will cost upwards of 2M here will cost an average of, let me say, less than a mil there, or even around a mil.
But what difference would it make when you come here, you start doing the custom registration and everything, so you'll end up paying the 2 million. Kenya ni home.
Kenya ni home. Now, wanasema Kenya ni home na home?
Na home ni sisi.
Na home.
Kenya ni home na home ni Kenya. Na
No,
home
whatever.
ni sisi tuko home.
Ni sisi tuko home.
I don't know, check it out. As we wind up, give me some of your thrilling experience with the biker boys, because I'm now curious, not more about the the races.
Yeah.
Now I want to know how the biker boys, like some of the thrilling experience, the rides.
Every ride with biker boys was if
I
you
just
could,
want to hear one yenye mlienda mbali. I know water is very common, definitely.
wote hata sikutoka kama sidhani nilitoka kama nimeenda wote. The one ride I'll have gone to wote for, I didn't, and that was the day we lost a rider by the name Alex Momo. May his soul rest in peace.
Which year is this?
This is 2015.
What happened?
They hit a bump. So they had done, a part of the riders that were on the ride had done, like, what do you call it? Like a recce run, the weekend, either the weekend before, let me say a week before. So they were sure the road was clear. But in the course of that week, road maintenance guy had put up bumps along that road. And one of those bumps
Before telling anyone?
Yes, and they were unmarked. So the guys just rammed the bumps. There were like 4 riders who went down, but unfortunately Momo was the one who passed on.
Was he in front or?
Sijaielewa exactly, but I think he was the 3rd rider from the front, either the 3rd or the 4th rider from the front. So what happened, he must have hit the bump while on his brakes. So the bike flipped, fell on him.
Were they the ramples or just a big
Proper bump.
One.
Yes. One humongous bump.
Na kulikuwa na line hivi.
Na sasa riders wameponyoka wameenda kuenda.
Because wanajua hiyo barabara kuko na bump. Waka erect bump usiku.
Waka erect bump usiku. So wanakuja kama wamelima. The guys who were on that ride,
that's tragic,
were actually quite traumatized after. Were actually quite traumatized. I'm not sure
the
whether
ride ends
alikuwa
there.
hiyo ride, but the guys who were on that ride were traumatized. I was home, so what we used to do during rides, guys will post updates on the group, like photos, wakikula nyama, stopovers, you know. But on this particular day, there was no updates on the group.
So for those who did not go there,
So
like,
for
what's
those
happening?
What's going on? Hey, the
whole day?
The whole day. I got my first update at around 2:33 p.m.
From the time they left, which is in the morning.
They left, which was in the morning. And by the time you're getting that update, it is after a number of calls. You've called Paul, I've called Styles, I've called anyone whose number I had from the group, and no one is responding. So by the time
hao walikuwa huko kwa ride.
sasa unajua ukiwa huko ku manage scene, ku inform family,
Kuleta mwili.
unfortunately hizi vitu zikifanyika, you don't want the family to learn of their loved ones passing from the grapevine. You at least want some official communication.
I see car by the way to say, yo.
You know, ama mtu anapata update FB, unaona number plate uko like siyo ni fulani, you know.
Na alikuwa amesema naenda exactly hapo. Oh man, that is tragic. Yeah man, that was so
We've
bad.
come from far.
But
Trust me,
sasa,
we've
why
come from
did
far.
you not go for that ride?
I just had a feeling in the morning. Okay, mimi nakuanga,
Intuition.
I'm a bit, sijui nijiita superstitious. It's the wrong word, but let me just use it for lack of a better one. So whenever I'm going, because those rides, sijui whether I should say this on record, but those rides were proper rides.
What do you by proper you mean?
kuchomoka. You have to be mentally, physically, and spiritually prepared. Because those were proper rides. I think on average, guys will be averaging, let's say, like 220 kilometers per hour. And you can imagine you've done
Which bikes are these?
trip kama ya 700 kilometers, and you're averaging those speeds, kumaanisha
Watu wanaenda
hakuna mahali mko chini ya tu. So nyi watu ni
These are 1000 cc's.
These are 1000 cc's.
Not 600?
The least was a 600.
Who owned that?
So Alex had his ZX6R, which took him out. Guys like Jack Waden had a CBR, was it a CBR 600? CBR 600. Dennis Brown had a CBR 600. Amin's first bike before he got the Honda 929. Naweza kumbuka, sikumbuki. But he had a bike before the 929. Who else? Sam, there was a guy called Sam. He had a Gixxer 600. Who else can I remember? Yeah, there was but basically the smallest bike was a 600cc. A 600cc will comfortably do 20 to 30 to 40 easy.
And you'll keep up.
And you'll keep up. Mimi tu ndio nilikuwa the odd one out because I had the street bike. So
The 1300.
yes, it's a 1300
SG.
and it's a street. But unajua nayo inachomoka.
Without a clock.
Tuende. No, back there, kwenda. Back there ilikuwa
Hiyo time
superb.
ulikuwa wewe uliamka tu asubuhi ukasema this clock.
No, clock ilivunjika the first track day yenye tulifanya ya Road Warriors.
And you didn't bother to replace.
You
grew out of it.
It got stuck at 180. I have it in the house. My intention is to frame it and put it somewhere in the house.
Instead of using it in your bike.
Because it got stuck at 180.
How do you
so I
know
can't
you are
imagine
in
how.
what gear without a clock?
Experience.
No.
For real.
Like instead of paying attention on the road, you're like, okay, I'm sure that was 1, 2, 3. Or how do you do it?
When you ride a bike without a gear indicator, you bond with your bike better than somebody who has a gear. A gear indicator, in my opinion, is a distraction.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can't even know your speed.
Mbona kwani gear ndio inakwambia speed?
No, I'm saying like speedometer. So you don't have a clock and it tells you your gear and the speed and
damn
everything. Fuel and everything. Mama.
No.
Yours didn't have all that.
It had. What do you mean? It was a proper clock. It had the rev
And
meter and the
what
speedometer.
in the clock, what do you find? The RPMs,
Yeah.
the gear,
Speedometer.
the speedometer and the
Fuel.
gear. Yes.
Gear.
Now wewe utajuaje mafuta imeisha?
Sinajua bike yangu.
Ikianza kukohoa.
Sinaijua, sinaielewa. But my bike
Hapana.
had a fuel gauge. Haikuwa that.
Ilikuwa kando?
Ilikuwa na fuel gauge.
No, si iko part of
on
the clock.
speedo, eh.
So I'm asking, changing gear, how do you know you're in what gear? Speed.
You
What
listen
speed
to
do
your
know?
engine. You will know when your engine needs you to downshift. You'll know when it needs it for you to upshift.
Was it just for your bike specific or for every bike you were able to tell?
Sorry?
Was it just for your bike specifically or you were able to tell for each and every bike?
No, for every bike.
So if I remove the clock from a bike,
I will
and
ride
I
it
ask you to
without.
switch it on and ride,
I will
I'll
ride
ask you
it
which
without.
gear is this?
I won't know which gear I am in,
Ah.
but I will be able to ride it and I won't stall it.
But for that's what I'm asking. How would you know you're in what gear? Ama, you're saying it's not necessarily.
Let me ask you this. How does knowing what gear you're in help you ride?
Well, you just know.
And then?
See, now you know, like, okay, I'm doing gear 4 at 100 kph or I'm doing gear 5 at 150 kph.
That is irrelevant info.
So you're saying when you're riding your bike, gear does not help you get
Gear
any
does not help
experience?
me.
Does not make you become skillful?
Nah, no. Gear
Guys,
indicator, not really.
You're being advised to remove your
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying riding a bike without a gear indicator, inakupatianga skill set. You get to, let's say like when you're changing your gears, you know how to, inakupatia.
FCD itakuwa awareness. Okay, fuel gauge basi at least.
Fuel gauge ni poa.
Yeah, but now
Lakini jigsaws hazikujangi na fuel gauge. Ni jigsaws don't come with a fuel gauge.
No, inakujanga nayo only that it's
Inakujanga na
different
fuel
from the
light.
bars.
No, inakujanga na fuel light peke
It
yake.
starts blinking.
Yeah. The light goes on and then it either starts blinking then goes fully on, or it goes fully on then starts blinking.
But at least you know, that's why I'm asking you. Explain to me how you'd know your XJ inaisha mafuta. I want to know the theory part of it. No. Yani, even ulikuwa na slow ase kwa ride group.
Utajua. You know your bike, you know how fast you're going, you know consumption once I'm hitting this speed.
Unatingisha tank.
Unatingisha tank unajua.
that would
Watu
be
wakiingia peti unatingisha tank unaona, do I need more fuel? Twendeni mimi niko sawa.
But what if you're riding, let's say 1300 consumes more than a 600, right?
Yeah.
So if me and you are going for a ride, I put full tank and you put full tank, definitely yako itaisha mbio sana na yangu itakuwa imeisha.
Okay. If you're talking about the biker boys rides, hizo rides lazima unge make sure tu uko full tank. Any stopover into a petrol station, into a fuel station, hata kama uko na mafuta, hata kama ulikuwa umetumia so mbili, rudisha hiyo so mbili. Lazima nikuwe full tank kila time.
So that experience made you feel like you don't need the clock. Because there used to be fueling everywhere.
Lazima unge fuel tu. Whether your fuel ni kidogo au si kidogo, you guys will come up with randoms. You're doing a ride from here to Nyeri and back. You get to Nyeri, you guys decide, you know what, tufikeni na Nyuki. Si ni hapa tu.
Yeah, bado wanasema hivyo ni hapa tu.
Tuende. So lazima ungekuwa na pesa yako. Kama hauna mafuta uko na pesa ya mafuta.
Lazima moja ingekuwa inawaka. Kama una mafuta
uko na pesa ya mafuta.
Well, I like that. I think you guys had so much fun. not to say that the guys who are riding these days are not having much fun, but for me, I'm always the type of guy. The reason why I started the podcast is because I feel like you guys were really having it, like you were enjoying it, and there was no GoPro to document these things. I feel like you really have fun sana,
Proper fun.
compared to these guys kina sisi kama sahi sasa. Yes, we do rides and everything, but I think since you guys were starting siku za bikes ndio inaanza, mlikuwa mna enjoy
It was
hiyo
all out.
thrill.
Yeah, it
crazy
ilikuwa
sana.
tu all out.
And you'd almost ride every weekend. Like you make
It
sure.
was actually not almost. I think it was every weekend, literally, written on stone. Every weekend, Sunday, guys are going. Hata kama see the entire group, there will be factions of the group going for a ride.
Who'd want to do it.
Yeah.
And they just come through.
And they'll just come through.
Oh man, you guys had fun. I'm hoping you'll fix your XJ. You said when next week?
Soon enough. Soon enough.
Yeah.
The king of Thika Road is coming back soon.
You're on. You live in Juja, so
Yes.
you'll be doing the. Okay, nice. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Very good.
You've highlighted a lot of good things and umefungua memories. So I hope the guys who are watching, who are new into bikes and everything, they get to understand more and more of how these things went by.
Karibu. I hope some old guys will come in the comment section.
Yeah, of course, watakuja.
Kuja na ma-update. Na kama kuna mahali nimedanganya waseme nime.
Some
Hapo
of them
mimi
are watching it too low-key,
wamedanganya.
and they just send me thumbs up kwa WhatsApp like, good job, I like what you're doing, like good job, good job. But yeah, I'm really so much interested to know more about how it used to happen back in the days. This is for documentation purposes. So I hope with time we will get more guests and they'll come to share their stories and they'll explain how things used to be back in the days. Asante sana man.
Karibu.